In the last video, we saw how to create a duck, a folder entity with unique properties of a duck, as well as unique methods such as make duck fly. Now we'll take a look at how we might contain our ducks. So let's go back down here to data structures and take a look at how we would typically contain those ducks, or what we might use to contain those. So folder extensions. Folder extensions are much like folder entities or other defined data structures, particularly folder entities in that they not only persist but they have several actions attributable to them and services as well. The folder extension, however, is an extension of a folder. So while we define parameters of an object, like let's say we have a zoo, and we want to say this zoo has a number of employees, if this was a folder entity or a typical data structure, the only way to add contents to it, like let's say we wanted to add ducks, would be to add a collection of duck entities to it. So we could say this has a whole bunch of ducks. Now this is kind of useful. I mean, we've filled up the requirements of this zoo entity if we wanted it to contain ducks. However, when we create that entity inside the portal, it won't be exposed in the same way that we may want it to. If we want to move ducks from one zoo to another, we'll have to go through a long drawn-out process of running through these duck data members, picking out the right one, and then moving it. But Decisions already has methods for doing that are pretty easy, that should be very easy to use and are there by default. So what we really want to do is we want to have a folder structure where the zoo folder contains the ducks. So we'll delete that data member. Under type namespace, just for organizational purposes, we'll say this is a non-profit organization. This is just to help organize some of the folders that will appear under the common data elements folder in the system folder. And we'll select some of the default actions. So just as we selected actions for adding a duck, we will also select options for adding a zoo. Adding with data is to add the zoo and define not just the name of the zoo, but also define the number of employees or other data members in a pop-up. To add simple is to just give it a folder name, which would end up being the name of the zoo. If you want to override the create action name, that would allow us to change the name from add zoo to, for example, build a zoo. And just as we did with the folder entity, we'll select the checkboxes for deleting and editing. This will allow us to delete those folders and edit them from within the portal. And we'll also include options to add comments and add documents, because those are things we may want to do in a folder. Allow us to manage permissions and restrict access to these zoo folders to only specific people. Sure. Do we want to move a zoo folder? Sure. Do we want to add a zoo as a subfolder to another folder type? So this is useful if we had, say, a folder type for nonprofit organizations. So if we had a nonprofit organizations entity and it had zoo folders suborned to it, we might want to select this. For the sake of our example, we will go ahead and select it. We'll also add the option to be able to add a to-do. So if we need to leave a note here, say this number of ducks isn't right, come back and look at it, we can add that to-do if we have the show add to-do action selected, as well as the option to change the name of the zoo. And that's just like changing the name of any other folder. If we wanted to only show the zoo in a report, such as in this window back here, but not show it here in the portal tree structure, we would unselect show in tree. But we do want to see it, so we'll select show in tree. And if we want to define the default page name. So for example, if we don't like the basic layout of the folder page, we don't just want to see the contents, but we want to see something a little more customized. We want to see a report of specific animals, we want to see buttons, that sort of thing. We would change the default page name and then define it as whatever the portal page that we would later define would be. So right now we don't have a zoo details page, but if we define it here and then create that page later in the folder that will appear, whenever someone navigates to a Zoo folder, the default view that they'll have in the default page will be whatever page exists in that folder called Zoo Details. In addition, we also want to select these checkboxes down here to generate the necessary steps for creating, editing, deleting, and retrieving Zoo folders within the Flow Designer, and we'll click OK. Now, as we did with the folder entities, when we create an entity that has services attached or needs to rely on services, the whole Decisions Service Host Manager will need to restart, so we'll restart that now. So our service is restarted, and now if we want to add a Zoo folder, because we selected the Add Subfolder option, we can add a Zoo as a subfolder to any other folder. We can also add it as a root folder. So if I go to Add, Build a Zoo, I'm going to say this is Bronx Zoo. And now I have the Bronx Zoo folder. Now the Bronx Zoo folder just has a couple of options. It has the name, has the description, and the number of employees. I don't know how many it has right now. Let's say it has 1,500 employees. And that'll be our Bronx Zoo folder. If you want to add ducks to this folder, we can go to Edit, Add Duck, and define a duck for this folder. Now the definition of the ducks is not part of the definition of the Bronx Zoo. So we can add as many as we want, we can manipulate them, we can delete them, we can export them, we can move them around, and these ducks are each self-encapsulated just like the Bronx Zoo is self-encapsulated. But because these are folder entities, they do have some relationship to the folder above them. So let's say this is a brown duck. She has 2 wings. So we have our brown duck inside of the Zoo folder, and it's ready to go. Because we have yet to define a page for the Bronx Zoo, for that Zoo Details page that it's looking for, nothing's going to appear up here yet. But if we go to create that page, we will find it under System, Common Data Elements, Folder Behavior Actions. Now, in addition to the pages that we would create, let's call this Zoo Details, we'd also have the option to create custom actions by creating flows within this folder, just as we did with the duck entity. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to design this page. So I've added a folder actions bar and a basic report viewer to contain the entities within this folder. I'll save it. Now we have the page Zoo Details inside of the appropriate folder behavior actions folder under nonprofit organization.zoo folder behavior action. And when I go back to the Zoo folder, the Zoo Details page is the first thing we see, including all the action buttons we want, and the report viewer that just contains a report of the entities inside of this folder. So if I were to say add comment, say this is a comment description, click OK. That comment will appear inside this folder. In the next video, we'll take a look at our final custom data structure, the Flow Data Extension, which will allow us to add additional properties to our process data.